A very pleasant good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again into O'Neill's Grill, here for our weekly fan and press luncheon. As we are here each Tuesday through the college football and men and women's basketball season. This week our lineup, it's Coach Mike Houston, JMU football Dukes. We have given the basketball coaches a week off. They'll get back with us again next week as the college basketball season for both teams begins at home on November the 10th. A few other JMU sports announcements before we ask Coach Houston to come up to the podium to talk about this past weekend's 21-0 win over New Hampshire and the upcoming game at Rhode Island this weekend. Congratulations to JMU cross country. The women's cross country team went to Elon this past Saturday and won the Ncaa cross country championship. So the first title of the year goes to the women's cross country Dukes under head coach Dave Rinker. Nora Rare, a senior, was the individual champion. The 5 scoring Dukes all finished in the top 12, so all 5 earned all CA honors. Congratulations to those ladies. Coming up next is the Ncaa Regionals, and that's the first title for the Dukes. They snapped William & Mary's 5-year reign on that championship, so their first title since the Dukes last had it 5 years ago, or 6 years ago. Also, congratulations to Tom Foley and the JMU men's soccer Dukes. On Saturday night, they went into the final match needing a victory and a couple of other combinations potentially, but the victory secured the #1 seed and the regular season title for the men's soccer program as well, which also means that the Dukes will host the semifinals for the CAA tournament on November the 10th. That's a Friday. We'll have early evening and late afternoon, early evening games at Centera Park, and JMU will face the winner between 4-seeded Hofstra and 5th-seeded William & Mary. And we'll give you the times for those matchups later on. You can check jmusports.com or casports.com. The championship match also will take place at Centera Park on Sunday, November the 12th. And we do have the volleyball championship coming the next weekend to Sinclair Gym of Godwin Hall. So a lot of activities coming up, but we still have football, of course, going on. Dukes have won 8 in a row, 20 in a row when you go back to last year, and they just continue to set great records. And the Dukes, they did come up with a win this weekend at home against New Hampshire. Coverage this weekend for the Rhode Island game. Of course, there's always the audio coverage, the JMU Sprint Broadcast Network. Dave Thomas, Clint Estes will head up to Rhode Island for that game. The coverage begins at 11 a.m. It is a noon kickoff from Rhode Island, so that's 11 a.m. You can hear that through Matazone Audio. The only video coverage is provided through Rhode Island, and it is College Sports Live, which is a CBS affiliate, and that will require a subscription this weekend. So the only way to view it is through the subscription package through Rhode Island and College Sports Live. Coach Mike Houston of the Dukes, the podium is yours, sir. 8-0 Dukes, here he comes.
Thanks a lot, and thank everybody for coming back out this week, and thanks again to Tim and Mo and everybody here at O'Neill's for hosting us. So. Obviously, it was another great weekend in Bridgeforth Stadium this past weekend. Another sellout crowd for homecoming. You know, a lot of alumni, a lot of former players back on campus. It was great to have all of them back, and certainly it was a kind of contest we anticipated against a very good New Hampshire team. Very pleased with the way our team came out and competed all day long. Thought that we had a lot of energy. Thought we played very hard. And I thought we did a lot of things really well. And so anytime you're playing a top 20 team and a CAA team, nothing's going to be easy. So the game was, extremely competitive. I thought our kids, played very well defensively. I thought offensively we, had some really, really solid drives in the first half, able to build a 14-0 lead. And then just very pleased with the way we competed in the second half and able to win the game 21-0. So you don't see a shutout very often in our league, especially against what was the number 3 offense in the league coming into the game. So I think that right there is a testament as to just how well our kids played last Saturday. So looking forward to this weekend. We are going to Rhode Island to face a drastically improved squad from Rhode Island. All you got to do is flip on the film and just look at how the kids look standing there, and you can see that the improvement as far as the weight room, a year older, more developed, They look like a CAA football team. You look offensively, and they have 3 skill players that can take it the distance on any given play. They have a solid quarterback transfer from New Mexico, Lawson, who has kind of emerged as their guy and is really making plays with his feet and with his arm. And then I think Aaron Parker is probably the most explosive receiver in our league, at least what I've seen so far. And I think he ranks up there as maybe the most dynamic skill player we've seen all year. He's a player that on any given play can make you look silly. I mean, just his God-given ability is really special. So we are going to be challenged greatly on Saturday. They had a great road win at Albany last week, 31-14. A game that probably was not that close. Albany was able to run a fumble back late to close the gap. But, this is a team that's playing with a lot of confidence. It's a tough place to play. I told our kids that we're going to be tested this week on a lot of levels. 12 o'clock kickoff, on the road, pretty good distance away, and playing a quality opponent at their place. So, looking for a great week of practice and hoping to be able to go up there and find a way to win by 1 at Rhode Island this weekend. So, any questions about last week's game or the upcoming opponent?
Coach, if you will, kind of talk about the evolution of your offensive line through the last, say, 3 or 4 weeks. You've been playing some of the top defenses, not just in the conference, but in the country, and the challenges that present because, again, a target's on your back, it's bigger this year. Just kind of talk about how these guys have grown and what you've seen the last few weeks out of them.
Well, I do think we're improving as we move along. And, Saturday against a very good defensive front in New Hampshire, we saw not only our starting 5, but we saw, Liam Fernadel and Zaire Bethea get a significant amount of playing time. And I thought both of them played really, really well. I think that's only going to help our offensive line as we move forward, with the added depth. I think that what you're seeing is, they are being faced, this year with our schedule the way it was, with some of the top fronts in the league here for the last 5 weeks. And I really like the way our kids have competed. I thought we ran the ball better on Saturday. I thought we had more consistency in our drives on Saturday. And we hope to see that continue this coming Saturday.
Tom Ncaa, Northern Virginia Daily. Can you talk a little bit about your secondary and kind of the progression that they've made since you've got here and even this season?
Well, I think they've improved a lot, and that's probably an understatement. Just where we were a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, versus where they are right now. Certainly they're talented athletes, but they were talented athletes when we got here. And I think that Coach Trott and Coach Weaver have done a great job of establishing, sound fundamentals in both zone coverage and man coverage, and really working to develop not only their physical ability, but also their mindset of how to play in the secondary. I think they fully understand our scheme now, and I think that, we've had success because, we're a team that we can go out there and we can match people up man. We can go out there, we can play, solid zone defense. We understand both. We understand how to play well together. We communicate well. So I think it's just a lot of hard work, a lot of growth and maturity, and a group that's really, driven to be the best.
David Guzman, TV3 Harrisonburg. You talked about this on Saturday, the fake punt that got you a lot of yardage, and you talked about how that wasn't a trick play, that was something you guys practiced. How big was that at the time? Because neither offense was getting anything going.
Right.
And then in this season of CAA football, where it's really hard to get points, how critical are the big plays as opposed to previous years?
Well, I think the big thing Saturday was it flipped the field as far as field position wise. Now all of a sudden, if at the very least we've got it to where we're on the positive side of the field position battle, and that proved to be the biggest factor all day long. We were able to limit how many times New Hampshire ever got down into our red zone. So I think that was a big play in the ball game Saturday. I think our special teams have been huge throughout this CAA play so far this year because we have had solid play on all our units, and every week, and I've talked about it before, that's one of our goals is win the field position battle. And we've been able to consistently win that field position battle primarily because of the way our special teams are playing.
Greg Medea, DNR. I think it was on the touchdown catch that Ishmael Hyman had, but Trey Sharp made an excellent block and pass protection. How much better has that running back group gotten at doing some of the other things besides just running a football?
Right, and that's something that doesn't get a lot of attention. It was a I mean, it was a max blitz, straight man coverage. So it was one of those deals where, Brian knew he's going to have to get the ball out quick, and he knew he was probably going to get hit in the side of the head. I mean, they were bringing everybody. And, Trey did a great job of stepping up and not only taking on the linebacker right in his face, and that's not something easy to do with a guy running downhill on you like that, but he actually flat backed the kid, so, that takes some courage now. And it's something I think Coach Sims has worked hard on developing those kids. And you see us, they play on special teams. They're doing a great job in pass protection. They do a great job catching the ball out of the backfield. So our running backs, they do a lot more than just run the football. They're very involved in a lot of different facets within our offense. But obviously that was a huge play right there by Trey that probably got overshadowed. But it was the reason that Brian had the time to connect with Ish.
Coach, this past week you saw Trevor Knight, who's sort of a dual threat quarterback. This week you're facing a young man in Juwan Lawson, who ran the option at New Mexico, so he's familiar with having the ball in his hands. How similar are they as far as their styles of keeping the ball and running it? And how does that challenge when you call up a scheme or a particular blitz package?
Well, I mean, I think you look at what they do with him. They do have some design quarterback run. They run the quarterback stretch. They run a lot of quarterback draw stuff. So they have some design quarterback run stuff in their offense that we've got to make sure that we're sound against because he is a legitimate threat. And much like Knight, what concerns you is when it breaks down and he decides to tuck the ball and run. Now, he hadn't been in the offense as long as Knight has been in New Hampshire's offense. So I think you're still seeing kind of him improve week to week because I thought he played the last 2 weeks. He's played much better than he had the first couple of weeks he was in there, when he took over the starting quarterback job. So I don't quite know what his ceiling is yet. I hope he's reached it. I hope he doesn't reach it this coming weekend. But I do think that he's a guy that throws the ball well and has the ability to run well, and he's one that's gaining more confidence and improving every week he goes out and plays.
I think this past week, you guys have to play some of the younger cornerbacks, or in Taurus Carroll, and then, well, he's not younger, but Justin Bethea too. What did you think of those guys in terms of what they did on Saturday?
Well, I thought they responded well. It was a deal with Curtis out last weekend where we're playing a team that throws the ball around a good bit, and we were going to play a lot of nickel and dime packages, so we're going to play multiple corners on the field. So it was one where we need those young guys to step up, and I thought Justin was solid, and I thought Taurus, for a freshman, I thought he played really, really well. I think there was probably no play that kind of stood out any more than when New Hampshire put 19, who's a 6'4" wideout, and he's their red zone guy. They lined him up, and we all knew it was coming because it was right in the right part of the field, and it was the formation, and you knew they're getting ready to throw the fade ball to him, and Taurus defended it very, very well in the back corner of the end zone, and that's a tough route for a kid like Taurus to, true freshman, a year out of high school against an older receiver, much bigger and stronger, but I thought he played really solid.
You touched upon Rhode Island a bit and how much they've drastically improved, and you look at how they've done this season. The game that sticks out to me is the scare they gave to Elon, and we know that Elon is the seventh-ranked team in the country now.
Right.
What's the biggest thing that I guess stuck out to you about how different they are compared to last year?
Well, I think when you look at them on offense, you look at their offensive line. They're all athletic. They're big kids. They can move their feet, so they're really solid right there. I think they've got the quarterback that can run the offense. Harold Cooper, everybody knows about him, so they've got a legitimate running back there, and you're sitting there with a transfer tight end from Maryland. You're sitting there with Aaron Parker. You're sitting there with 18, who has dynamic speed. They have legitimate skill kids that are as good as anybody in the league. So you're looking at an offense that has the potential to be as good as anybody we faced. And then you flip over defensively, and it's kind of the same formula there. Their defensive front looks like a CAA defensive front. I think that's the strength of their defense. They have big kids that are athletic. I think they have guys in stand-up positions that run around well. And just when you look at them this year compared to what we faced last year, it's just night and day as far as the way they look on film and the way they look just standing there on the hoof. They look like a CAA football team. And I think the game against Elon, the game against New Hampshire, the game Saturday against Albany. They're sitting there and competing with and beating some of the better teams in our league. So, we've got to understand that this is going to be a dogfight up here, and we're going to play as good as we played all year long to have a chance to win.
What are some of the biggest things defensively that kind of concern you with their defense?
Well, I think the front four is the first thing that stands out. I think they've got three of their down linemen that are in the top 10 in the conference in sacks. I mean, they got one kid that's second, one that's seventh, okay, and then they've got two that are tied for 14th. So they got four down linemen that are in the top 14 in the league in sacks, and these are big kids that are athletic, can move around. So we're going to have to do a great job in the run game. We're going to have to do a great job of protecting Brian. But anytime you have a solid defensive front, and you look at our defense, that is going to bode well for everything else out there. So I think that we're just going to be challenged up front this Saturday.
Coach, this past Saturday you threw balls to 9 different receivers. I think on the season you've thrown to 14. So you've got some weapons. Is it hard getting everybody in the flow of a game when you've got that many weapons? And is it hard keeping them engaged and maybe their day isn't that particular day to be kind of in the main flow of the offense?
Well, that's something we talk to them about all the time, because you'll have a player that maybe doesn't have a catch one weekend that has 5 or 6 catches this past weekend. And John Miller's a great example. He's a kid that 2 weeks ago, I don't know, maybe one catch. This past weekend, he had 4 or 5 big plays. So it's a deal that you just never know how people are going to defend you. It depends a lot on the coverage. It depends on the matchups. And it's one of those things where, I can promise you this: we don't go into a game saying we've got to get so-and-so the ball X number of times. It is purely just, what's there, how can we attack them, and what's best for us to be successful. And that's, I think, all the kids have bought into that. And so even though they may have a day where they don't get the ball as much, they understand they still have an important role, within the offense on that day.
What's enabled Clayton to have so much success early? I think he's had 3 games in a row with a touchdown catch. Is it teams are covering Kloosterman, trying to find Kloosterman, and Clayton's open? How would you kind of assess that, or is it just his hard work?
Well, I think that Donnie's done a good job designing our red zone package. We've always used the tight ends a lot down there. Clayton is probably a little more advanced than we expected him to be for a first-year tight end. And I referenced it a few weeks ago. He was a quarterback in high school, but there's a reason why we signed him. We signed him because he has the frame to play the position. He has the physical abilities to play the position, and he's a headsy competitive football player. So I think that you're seeing a guy that's taking advantage of opportunities. He's a really good athlete for a tight end, really good hands. He understands offense from playing quarterback, so he has a good sense for spacing and things like that. So I think it's a culmination of a lot of things, but it's certainly not something, again, where we're saying we got to go to Clayton right here. I mean, it's the play's designed to do this, and all of a sudden Clayton's the one that's the guy based on the defense.
We saw some more of Ethan Ratke, and you can tell us if we're going to see more of him this season. But how has he developed under Tyler's shadow and become an example of that next man up approach that we've been talking about all year?
Well, last year, I don't know if Ethan would have been able to even walk on the field. He when he came here, he just nice kid. We thought he had potential, but it was a rough start there his freshman year. But really, we saw it coming last spring. Where I felt like he was really developing. He's very coachable. He's worked very, very hard in the weight room. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's a whole lot bigger than he was when he got here. He's really worked on his leg strength. And he is a guy that we have confidence in. It was, when Tyler was injured at William & Mary, it wasn't a panic moment for us. And Ethan had kicked in a couple of games early in the season. We'd gotten him in there. But it's one of those things where we kick both the kids each week. And we have a ton of confidence in both of them. So I thought he did a good job on Saturday. The one field goal that was a miss was a bad snap. I thought he handled the extra points just fine. His kickoffs, most of his kickoffs have been touchbacks since he took over, so I think he's doing a really solid job.
Coach, knowing how some of the closeness of the games in the league in particular this year have been, I've been watching some games just around the country over the last week or so, seeing mental breakdowns from players where they get drawn into stuff where there's extracurricular, next thing you know, there's a penalty that takes you out of scoring range or those kind of things. This late in the season, knowing the games get bigger, the playoff scenarios are looming out there, how do you keep your kids from getting drawn into that kind of stuff, knowing that you may have opponents that may be a part of their game plan coming in if they can get somebody outside of themselves to hurt you a little bit?
Well, the biggest thing we always preach to them is they can't be selfish. They've got to understand that they're accountable to their teammates. And they've got to understand that, jawing back at a kid and getting an altercation or something like that, that's being selfish. That's putting yourself above the team. We don't need the penalty. We don't need to lose a player over that, and we don't want to be represented that way. So it's something we really talk to our players about a lot. You know, obviously we look at film each week. I know which teams we got to worry about and which ones we don't. If we're facing a team where I think there's going to be a lot of extracurricular stuff, I really make it a hard message throughout the week that we're not going to be involved in that. You know, we talk with the way we play. We don't talk before the play. We don't talk after the play. We're going to represent JMU the way it's supposed to be represented, and that's in a first-class manner, and hopefully try to get a win and go on to the next.
Anything else, gentlemen? All righty, Coach.
All right, looking forward to this weekend. Hopefully we can find a way to come back with a win. Go Dukes.